Glad to have you guys with us and everybody watching across the country on our YouTube Live and our Facebook Live. Glad to have you with us. I am in Atlanta today, Atlanta, Georgia. I'm out of the studio as I am out covering the SWAC basketball tournament. We've had a doozy of a week on the men's and the women. Today is Championship Saturday, as teams around the conference will find out if they're going to be able to punch their ticket into the NCAA tournament. But as anything, March Madness has already begun because we've seen it right here in the tournament. And nobody better to talk about the SWAC basketball tournament than the very guy who's been calling the games all week. And you guys have known him and you've heard his voice if you've been watching your prospective team this week. I want to welcome here to the show my man, Santoria Black. Good morning, Santoria.
Good morning. How are you doing? Can you hear me okay?
I hear you well, man. How about that? How you up? What you doing up this early? I'm glad you're up to fool with me, man. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Well, for me, I'm done with what I got to do, and so I'm getting ready to go back towards Louisiana, at least as far as I can before the storms get to acting foolish.
Well, I first of all, safe travels, man, and thank you for all that you did this weekend covering the games, man. And listen, a hell of a weekend. Let's start on Tuesday because what we're going to do the men's side first because I know everybody in terms of right now listening want to hear about what happened to Southern. But let's start on Tuesday. We had a first-round matchup, Prairie View, Florida A&M, Alabama A&M, and Grambling, right? Let's look at these teams. Florida A&M is the team that really stepped up this year, played a lot better than what we've seen in the past. And then you look at Grambling. Last year's champion in the tournament, but this year it seemed like they kind of underachieved during the regular season. But nonetheless, when you look at both of these teams, Florida A&M was able to get the victory 75-66 over Prairie View in round one, and Grambling with a big victory 73-56 over Alabama A&M. Let's look at day one. Give us a recap of day one when you look at these matchups. Santoria, you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now.
So this was a big game here for the Grambling Tigers. They had just played Alabama A&M the previous Thursday, and they pretty much knew, regardless of how things would turn out, they pretty much knew they were going to face Alabama A&M again in the tournament. And they were able to really do a great job in neutralizing the length that Alabama A&M had. And also, they did something that was so uncharacteristic of them this year. They hit 8 3-pointers in the first half of that ball game, and it really set the tone for what they needed to do. And, look, head coach Dante Jackson said, hey, we got to come in here. We got to make a statement. It's a new season, and no matter what you did to a team during the regular season, this is the tournament. This is when it really matters.
Man, and it really did matter for them is, hey, listen, Florida A&M getting it done. All right, let's move to Wednesday. And before I get to the upset, let's start with Florida A&M, who made it to the quarterfinal. They took on Jackson State. Jackson State was one of those teams right there, second and third all season under Coach Mo Williams. He seemed to have really had them headed in the right direction. Jackson State gets the victory over the Rattlers, 91-76. And then in the game that I think I didn't see this one coming, but it's March Madness. There's nothing you can see coming when it comes to basketball this time of the year. Grambling and Southern in a very, very, very tough matchup. Goes into overtime. Grambling gets the victory, 65-62. Very wild and crazy ending to the regular session. And then as it goes into overtime, and for everybody that's out there listening, when you hear about this matchup between Grambling and Southern, it was back and forth. Southern did not seem to have their best day shooting. 22 of 69 for 31%. They were 3 of 17 from the three-point line, shooting 17%. 15 of 15 from the free throw line, shooting 100%. On the other side for Grambling, they just made the shots when it mattered. They were 19 of 59, shooting 32% in that ball game. 7 of 21 from the three-point line, shooting 33%, and 20 of 26 from the free throw line, shooting 76%. Southern also out-rebound Grambling, 52 rebounds to 36 rebounds. And then you look at back and forth. Southern had his largest lead, and that was heading into a halftime. Their largest lead, they were up by 13. Then Grambling on the back end had their largest lead at 5, but Santoria, when you look at this game, a hell of a game when you talk about the Bayou Classic on the hardwood. Two teams who know each other well. Southern got both victories during the regular season in Baton Rouge and up at Grambling against the Tigers, but this time they fell short, and Grambling found a way to get it done in overtime.
Yeah, they did. And I'm going to tell you something. To me, one of the biggest parts of this ball game was the end of regulation. And there needed to be a perfect storm for Southern to send this game into overtime. And I remember telling Tolly Carr when we were calling this game, I said, watch Nunnally because he is going to be the key if they're going to get this ball back. And lo and behold, he was out there on Dozier, got right up on Dozier, caused a turnover. The ball was thrown back in. And then all of a sudden they got the pass down to Noel. We eventually fouled out of the ball game, but he got the dunk to send it into overtime. And it was just incredible. But then Grambling started just really just doing what they needed to do. And I thought that the Tigers played a very good ball game here. And, look, when you have rivals, you can throw the records, throw the seeding out of the window. This was really a passionate ball game between two old friends, as I like to say, and Grambling was able to come away with the victory. But the other game, this was the fourth overtime game of the tournament because Florida A&M Prairie View, that went to overtime on the women's side. And Valley went to overtime. Let's just say Valley and the Mississippi Valley women went into overtime. They won the opening round game. So 4 overtime games early on here in the tournament.
Then we move on to Thursday, right? We go to the quarterfinal on the other side. Alabama State taking on Texas Southern, Bethune-Cookman, and Alcorn State, right? Alabama State is the team who's been right there. They're the only team this year to sweep Southern both times. 1 point in Montgomery, 1 point in Baton Rouge, and Texas Southern. You never count them out when it's in March, right? They are the epitome of March Madness, especially when we get into the SWAC tournament. And then on the other side, Bethune-Cookman, led by head coach and athletic director Reggie Theus, takes on Alcorn State. Let's start with the Bethune-Cookman and Alcorn game. Bethune-Cookman got it done by 9, 69-60 over Alcorn State. And Bethune-Cookman, I have been saying it here on the show all year, they were kind of like, and I'm not even going to say kind of, Santoria, they were my dark horse this year. If I had a team of dark horse that nobody saw coming, they were my dark horse to potentially win the conference championship during the tournament. Really good team. They play hard, and they showed it throughout the season, getting victories along the way. And then you look at Alcorn. They just a team that was just kind of, right there amongst the pack. They can get a victory here and there, but nonetheless, this game, it was tough, 69-60, Bethune-Cookman over Alcorn State.
Yeah, and, look, Trey Thomas did not have his best ball game, the conference player of the year. He really struggled in the first half and a little bit of the second half as well. He was able to get a couple of three-pointers late, really was able to grind it out. But, I got to give it to Brayon Freeman because he was really the one that helped the Wildcats get to the next round over Alcorn State because he really showed up big, not only on the scoring side, but defensively. He had some big turnovers. He had some big takeaways in this ball game. I thought he had a really good game there. Willoughby had a big game, and I thought Martin, the guy from Spain, was really, really instrumental in this ball game as well. So to me, it was Freeman that really took it over the top. Trey Thomas did not have the best tournament these 2 games here, not against Alcorn, but he was able to find a way, and he didn't have a great game against Jackson State either. But, for this game against Alcorn, I thought that it was Freeman that really stepped up.
And let's look at Alabama State, Texas Southern. Alabama State has really turned it on here towards the end of the season, getting hot and getting victories, and they got it over Texas Southern, who normally dominates this conference tournament. They normally find themselves in a championship. But Alabama State, 84-79 over Texas Southern. This was a hell of a game right here, Santoria.
Yeah, at one point in time, this was a double-digit lead for Alabama State, but, you got Johnny, you got Johnny Jones on the sideline. You can't count them out. So they made a comeback. They were able to get really close in this ball game. Texas Southern, we knew that they were going to make a run, but you got to credit the shooting and the bigs on the inside. Great rebounding from Alabama State in this ball game. They were really able to limit second chance opportunities a lot in that first half, which kind of set the tone in the ball game. And then they got Texas Southern in foul trouble a little bit later on, started going to the free throw line. And so for Alabama State, I thought it was a big win, knocking off Texas Southern, which you can never count them out, no matter what seed that they are coming into the tournament.
And we move on to Friday. Here we are, the semifinal game. Southern fans still in distraught. How did the team, the number 1 team coming into the tournament and the regular season champion, not find themselves here? Well, it's March Madness. You got to be ready to play. And Grambling and Alabama State were ready to play. 64-62, Alabama State got the victory over Grambling in this one. Alabama State shot 23 of 64 for 35%. They were 7-25 from the three-point line, shooting 28%, 11-14 from the free throw line, shooting 78% over Grambling, who shot 20 of 55 around the field for 36%, 5 of 22 from the three-point line, and 17 of 18. Close game, and it seems Alabama State knows everything about pulling out close games, Santoria.
Well, I tell you what, it was a great shooting effort on this side. There were a lot of threes were coming down this ball game for Alabama State. Grambling was up in this game up through halftime, and then they even had a little bit of a lead in the second half. But Alabama State started on that run. They came down and hit 3 big 3-pointers, and then they had a 3-and-1. And so when you start shooting like that at the 3-point line, it's big. The other problem is that now then Grambling would put Alabama State on the line a little bit early in the second half, and Alabama State keyed in by getting those free throws. But the Tigers were able to make a run here. And late in the ball game, 64-62, the Tigers needed a bucket to send it into overtime or possibly win it. Michael Stevenson shot a 3-pointer trying to win the game. It was off the mark, and Alabama State got the rebound and got the victory. And this was a very emotional game because you could tell everybody left it on the floor. Kentavious Dozier got hurt late in this ball game with an ankle injury. He still came out and finished this game. You could tell the emotion on the Alabama State side, and there was so much respect between these players after the ball game because it was a battle for all 40 minutes.
Jackson State gets the victory last night in the semifinal game over Bethune-Cookman, 71-50. And you look at this game, I think you see it in field goal percentage. Jackson shooting 22 of 48 for 45%. On the other side for Bethune-Cookman, 20 of 79 for 25%. A tough night for shooting for Bethune-Cookman. I mean, they did everything they could to drive it to the basket, to shoot it in the basket, do whatever they could to get to the basket. And you can see the emotions all night. Just was not enough as Jackson State was able to get the victory last night.
Yeah, it was a tough night. You know, you could tell Freeman still recovering from that injury because he had his wrist taped up during the second half. Trey Thomas ended up getting ejected from the ball game because he got 2 technical fouls in the contest. But the other thing here is like you said, they just couldn't find their shot. And then when you start getting Ruffin, who everybody was like, well, how is he not Conference Player of the Year? Well, that's an easy answer. So remember, Ruffin did not play in 75% of the ball games to be considered for that for postseason award. He only played in 65%. So that's why he wasn't first team all conference or player of the year. So that's the rule. You got to play at least 75%. But Ruffin had a big game. You really had a great game from the bigs on the inside. And so when you start having bigs on the inside being able to score, you got great shooting from the outside. You know, it really it spelled disaster. And then again, like you said, Bethune-Cookman did not have a good night shooting. Freeman couldn't find his shot, although he still came up big in the ball game when he had to. Then Trey Thomas, again, not the best of games. So when you can't find your shot on the inside and nothing's falling, that it just happens. And so Jackson State on to the finals.
Hey, Santoria, then you look at today's matchup with Jackson State and Alabama State, man. Talk about the breakdown to today's game.
Well, for me, Alabama State is really going to have to figure out 2 things. One is how you neutralize the bigs on the inside because talking about Jackson State, they are huge on the inside. They've got a lot of inside presence, but they also can shoot the ball extremely well. And, when you talk about Mo Williams and the emotion going into this game, and just think about it, former coach at Alabama State, now with Jackson State University. So there's a little bit extra fuel there as well. But I think that they're going to have to really figure out how they're going to neutralize that shooting and what Ruffin does, because not only is he good from the outside, the dribble drive penetration that he has going back to the inside is just incredible. And if they can get Alabama State in foul trouble early, that's going to be a problem. And remember, Jackson State does a great job of playing the passing lanes in order to deny the pass. And if Alabama State doesn't figure out a way to break that press and cut down on those turnovers, they're really going to have a problem with Jackson State. I look for Jackson State really to win this ball game. I think that Jackson State really has the formula right now. I think they're a great team. Alabama State, I take nothing away from them. When I saw them play this week, I thought that they really played with a lot of passion, a lot of fire. They've got great presence on the inside. And when their shot is on, they're dangerous. So I think Jackson State's got something to be considered about too, because those threes that were raining yesterday against Grambling, Jackson's going to have to contend with that as well.
Got my man Santoria, Black Rock and Roller, with me this morning. He's been calling the games. I'm in Atlanta. He's in Atlanta. It is the SWAC basketball tournament, March Madness. And now with transition, we talked about the men's side. Today's championship is going to be Jackson State versus Alabama State on the men's. Now let's transition to the women. And Santoria, let's start back on Tuesday. Prairie View versus Bethune-Cookman goes into overtime, and Mississippi Valley and Florida A&M goes into overtime. You talked about both these games. Prairie View gets the victory 57-52. Valley, who went on a run towards the end of the season, kept it going against Florida A&M in overtime. 68-65. We got Santoria. Santoria, you there?
I am here, sir.
There you go.
I thought that Mississippi Valley, for all of the adversity that they have been through this year, for them to get this kind of win was so emotional. I mean, how long has it been since we've seen a Mississippi Valley State women's team in the tournament, let alone just a team from Valley? And so for them to get here, especially winning 3 in a row to end the season, they got a big win on the road against Jackson, and then for them to get here to the tournament and beat Florida A&M, I just think speaks volumes for what this program has really done. They really had some great play, very aggressive, and just extremely big heart with a passionate coaching staff. So for them to get that win, I thought was really big in overtime. Now, when you look at that second game with Bethune-Cookman, Prairie View just did a great job in overtime, just keeping that ball going to the inside, and that's what they needed. Coach Sandy Pugh has been down this road before. I mean, she has won championships with Southern University. She's been able to be successful at Prairie View A&M University, and I thought that they did a really good job with Bethune-Cookman, and then keeping some of their key players out of the game late. I thought that was really big.
Then we move on to Wednesday, and Prairie View and Valley both go into the quarterfinal. On Wednesday, Prairie View took on a rival, Texas Southern. These two schools know each other oh so well, coming out of Texas, and then Valley taking on the number 1 seed in the SWAC regular season champion, Southern University on the women's side. Coach Carlos Funches was named the Coach of the Year on the women's side. 63-43, Southern over Valley, and 69-49, Texas Southern over Prairie View. Let's look at that Texas Southern over Prairie View game. A 20-point victory for Texas Southern over their rival, the Panthers.
Yeah, Texas Southern just had the shot going. They were able to get the bigs going on the inside. Belton had a good game coming in off the bench. And, you know, when you can start getting that shot going, when you can start getting 3-pointers going, and the defense was just absolutely incredible against Prairie View. You know, Texas Southern was on a mission in this game. They did not want to lose to Prairie View. They really, from wire to wire, just really dominated Prairie View in this ball game. Then, of course, you know, when you look at Southern Valley, you know, look, I think that this year's team is just probably one of the most incredible teams that I've seen from Southern. Even though they had a great experience last year, they had tremendous experience the year before that. But there's something about this team here. They don't commit a lot of turnovers. They don't make, excuse me, a ton of mistakes. And again, just too much shooting, too much inside presence and defense from Mississippi Valley.
Then we move on, Santoria. Listen, Wednesday we go to Thursday, Alcorn State. Now, this was a team who was my dark horse on the women's side because Alcorn State has picked up victories pretty much over everybody in the conference. It's just been a lack of consistency on their end. And then you look at against Alabama A&M. Coach Don Thornton comes over from UAPB, takes over the Alabama A&M program. Listen, had a hell of a record this year, won 20 games. Then you look on the other side, Grambling and Jackson. Let's start with the upset of the tournament so far on the women's side. Alcorn getting the victory 56-53 over Coach Don Thornton and Alabama A&M in the quarterfinals.
Well, you know, her name is Destiny Brown. When she gets going, it is very hard to stop Alcorn State. And especially when you talk about rebounding. And she even said this in the press conference. It's not about the scoring so much, but what she does on defense and getting rebounds is really big. They are the lull you to sleep type of offense. They're going to run that shot clock down to 5 seconds, 4 seconds before they go. And what is Alabama A&M? They like to run up and down the floor. They like to go. And so now Alabama A&M was forced to be in a half-court game. Alcorn did a great job defensively, limiting some of the second chance opportunities for Alabama A&M. Really got them away from their game. And then, you know, again, look, you know, when he looked at this scouting report talking about head coach Nate Kilbert, he knew this was going to be a real challenge here for Alabama A&M with their length, their size, their shooting ability. A&M got into foul trouble then, and that really hurt them. But, you know, this was a team in Alcorn State that really played big in this game against Alabama A&M. And it just came down to Alcorn started getting on the line early. They started continuing to play tough defense. They got Alabama A&M in some compromising positions, although there were some runs. The Bulldogs weren't going away, but credit to Don Thornton. First year at Alabama A&M, setting a new program record, getting to 20 wins in in the season. And there's a lot of great things coming up for Alabama A&M. I talked to their athletic director, Dr. Paul Bryant, and he says that this team, if this is any indication of what is coming for Alabama A&M women's basketball, it's going to be a great program.
Then you look at the other games, Jackson State and Grambling. Both these teams battled it out. Jackson State finding a way to get it done. 57-47, 10-point victory in the quarterfinal over the Tigers. Tigers and Tigers in this one.
Yeah, Jackson State, this was a close game late in the contest as well. There were some opportunities for Grambling to possibly get the tie and even get the win late in the ball game. They didn't get a good shot off towards the end of the ball game. Head coach Courtney Simmons got frustrated and got another technical foul. But, look, you got to credit Grambling for what they did this year. Jackson is just an incredible basketball team. I think that when you look at what head coach Margaret Richards had to deal with coming in there, Tamika Reed leaves late in April for UNC Charlotte. Margaret Richards was hired May 1st and named the head coach at Jackson State. So you think about the amount of time that she had in order to assemble her coaching staff, and then, which I think was Dylan Howard, I believe his name, the former head coach at Alabama A&M, who is now with her at Jackson State University. She had so little time in order to assemble a staff, so little time. And, what she's been able to do with this team, and she only had 3 players that had on-campus visits. Everybody else was Zooms and phone calls. So I think that this says a lot about Jackson State University, and they've got a bright future ahead.
Let's go to the semifinal game, and let's start with Alcorn State versus Texas Southern. Texas Southern at one time was red hot in this conference, 10-0 at one time on a 10-game win streak. Then they came to Louisiana. They lost back-to-back games against Southern and Grambling and kind of cooled off a little bit. But nonetheless, they were still a formidable opponent and a tough team to play at any given night in this conference. Alcorn State finds a way to get it done by 10, 65-55 to knock Texas Southern out of there, and Alcorn State do what they do this time of year like they did last year, find a way to win.
I told head coach Nate Kilbert, this is like Groundhog Day for you guys. I said, you went into the tournament last year, you beat the number 3 seed in Southern. You turn around, you beat the number 2 seed in Grambling, then you get to the championship game with Jackson State. What do you do this year? You beat the number 3 seed in Alabama A&M. You turn around and beat the number 2 seed in Texas Southern. Now you face the number 1 team in Southern. And he told me, he said, we love this Groundhog Day, except we want to turn that movie around when it comes to the final. We don't want the same picture to happen in the final. And so, but what I thought was really interesting in this contest is in the scouting report, one of the things that he said he wanted to do is get some of those Texas Southern players who hit 3-pointers off of their spots. And I thought that's what they really did a great job of, is pulling Texas Southern away from being comfortable at the 3-point line. They were able to get out early on them. It was really a tough game for Texas Southern because they tried to work back to the inside, which, remember, their game is being able to shoot the 3-pointer as well. Now Alcorn comes to the other side. You slow a Texas Southern team down that likes to run with the basketball. And, again, that lull-you-to-sleep offense where they keep rolling around. And Destiny Brown continues. She had a double-double in this ball game. She continued to wreak havoc on the boards on the offensive and defensive side of the basketball. And, look, a much bigger team when you talk about Texas Southern, a better shooting team overall when you talk about them. But when you can put down defense, you can get them into that coffin corner when you're making them turn the ball over and not allowing second chance opportunities, and then hitting your free throws. Texas Southern put all 4 on the line really early in the fourth quarter. Look, you're going to come away with a victory.
Then let's go to the game last night that was back and forth. And I saw you after the game. I said, man, do you still have a voice? Back and forth between Southern and Jackson. Jackson, of course, defending champions coming into this tournament. They won it all last year with Coach Tamika Reed, of course, under the helm. And Coach Carlos Funches continuously finds a way to keep his team competitive in this league. 51-47 as Southern University women's basketball gets the victory over their rival Jackson State. Southern shoots 17-51 in this ball game, shooting 33%. They were 5 of 15 from the 3-point line, shooting 33%, and 12 of 17 from the free throw line, shooting 70%. On the other side for Jackson State women's basketball, 13 of 47, shooting 27%. Santoria, 6 of 19 from the 3-point line, shooting 31%, and 15 of 19 from the free throw line, shooting 78%. Jackson State women out-rebounded Southern. They had 40 rebounds to Southern's 29 rebounds, but nonetheless, this game went back and forth. it came down to the end. Southern had a lead in this game, and they ultimately kind of squandered things away. But then they found a way to regain the lead late when it mattered, and they pulled away with the victory.
Yeah, they did. Look, Talia Dilworth from Jackson State, she got hers. She had 13 points. I think Jalea Cotton, she had 13 points. Zoe Cooper had 10 rebounds in the ball game. But I think what happened here is, if you remember back in January, if I'm not mistaken, when these two teams played, Jackson State only had 14 made field goals in that ball game. They had 13 yesterday. And again, another team that could not find the shot to go down outside, couldn't find it to go down on the inside. They did make some runs, and they had some great runs in this ball game. But, when it really mattered here, Southern did a great job in the fourth quarter closing things out. Although they didn't hit a three-pointer in the third quarter, here's what they were. They were 5 of 7 at the free throw line, and when it counted, they were able to come up big. The other thing is they came up big with stopping them late. Sanaya Gordon had a big game. I think she had 11, and I want to say Sanaya Reed was in double figures with 10 points. But, look, Southern did a great job shooting the basketball, and we all know what Southern likes to do. They like to be on goal, up and down the floor. Jackson State tends that they don't want to be they don't want to have to run up and down the floor if they don't have to. Southern did a great job with that. Here's the other thing that I think Southern did a great job of. It's not on the stat sheet. They did not get caught in the Jackson State trap in the coffin corner coming across the half-court line. They had a propensity this year. That's one of the weaknesses to me that Southern had is they'd get across that half-court line on the sideline and get caught there and turn the ball over. They did not do that a lot yesterday at all. They really did a great job. And I thought that this team did extremely well. And, look, now you get ready for a big final.
Big final today. Alcorn Southern, both teams right down the highway, scenic highway, Highway 61, however you want to do it. They know each other all too well. And for Southern, looking at Alcorn, this was a team that knocked them out of the tournament last year. And for Alcorn, looking at Southern, Alcorn was the only team aside from Alabama A&M to come in and beat Southern at home this year in overtime. So this is going to be a hell of a game between both these ball clubs, and I'm looking forward to this one with Alcorn and Southern University.
I asked Coach Funches, and I said, when Aaliyah Fondo, she made 2 threes in 10 seconds in the championship game, and then Southern made 3 threes overall in 13 seconds. I said, you want to repeat the performance of that? He said, I don't know if my heart can take that. I just want them to have a good ball game, play good defense, execute well on offense, make sure that they stop Alcorn. There's a storyline here for Alcorn. You may not have Destiny Brown here today, depending on what her condition is, because she did suffer a mild concussion from what we heard yesterday at the end of that ball game. So whether or not she plays could be really big for Alcorn State. If she is able to get into the ball game and does play today, I think it's going to be really about who plays better defense here and turns the other team over. Both teams are good. Southern likes to run. Alcorn likes to lull you to sleep. I think if Destiny Brown does play here in this ball game, they're really going to have a big game from Liz. They're going to have a big game from their bigs on the inside to neutralize that and box her out. If she doesn't play, Southern can take advantage of the bigs on the inside and then, of course, really work them around in the shooting.
Santoria, man, I appreciate you coming on today, man, and talking to us and giving us a recap of the game, man. Appreciate all that you've done all week and calling these games because, man, you've been a busy guy. I'm glad you still got a voice in order to speak with me this morning, man, but appreciate you, and that's the voice of Santoria, black man. Thank you for all that you've been doing, man.
Absolutely. And look, people ask me how they can follow me, man. Usually I don't, I forget. My daughter has to remind me, but you can follow me on Instagram at SanBlack75, SAN, that's in like in Nancy, Black75. You can also find me on Facebook. And look, man, it's always a pleasure joining you guys. And look, continued success on all that you do, my brother.
All right. Thank you, Santoria.